I've been thinking a lot about weapons recently. What about it clicked and what didn't? And something I found myself resorting back to was the reveal, or more accurately so, the answer. Not every story revolves around an answer. Sometimes you just have a resolution. But also, not every film structured around finding an answer is really about the answer itself. Sometimes it's about the journey. It's about what the journey reveals about the world, the characters, or the theme. And the answer is merely a vehicle to move the plot along. And so while Weapons wasn't a stellar example of a film that does this concept well, it does get me asking, how does a lack of an answer end up working for a movie that centers its plot around asking a question? In Citizen Kane, a reporter is sent to interview those who knew Charles Kane to make sense of his final words, Rosebud. And yet, throughout the film, the word is only mentioned once or twice. When the eventual reveal comes to the audience, burning away amongst the trivial things that clutter his home, the reporters are ignorant of it. They never find the answer, but we as the audience aren't disappointed. Why is this? Because the answer to what Rosebud is was never the point of the film, much less the character's motivations to begin with.
All we saw on that screen was that Charles Foster Kane is dead. I know that. I read the papers. You see, Thompson, it isn't enough to tell us what a man did. You've got to tell us who he was.
What were the last words he said on Earth? Maybe he told us all about himself on his deathbed.
Yeah, and maybe he didn't. When Charles Foster Kane died, he said just one word.
Rosebud.
But who is she? What was that? Here's a man that could...
The characters themselves wanted a new perspective on Kane, and Rosebud was merely the angle they needed to achieve it. Similarly, the film used Rosebud simply to move the journalist from one person to another, as each interaction peeled back the layers of who Kane is. The journalists never answer what Rosebud was, but they find what they were looking for nonetheless. The actual person Kane was, away from his accolades and gossip. As for us, we find out both, which is what made this film work the way it did. We were looking for an answer that was under our noses this entire time. Rosebud isn't some unattached, unknown, unmentioned element to the story. In fact, it was hinted at within 20 minutes of the film's runtime. So though we aren't given a direct answer to what Rosebud is, our minds subconsciously link it to that moment, and in turn gives us all the context that we need. Everything that happened before and after those 20 minutes was merely a way to help us make sense of how Kane was perceived and understood. And Rosebud was simply a device to show us who he was in his heart. And both these things surely overlap as the film progresses. After a failure to obtain any sort of transportation, Alvin Straight goes on a 240-mile trip on a lawnmower to meet his brother who had just suffered a stroke. In the Straight story, we ask questions about this estranged relationship. What happened between Alvin and his brother Lyle? Why is it so crucial to Alvin that he go? What will happen when they finally meet? All questions that aren't really answered. Lynch doesn't venture off the course of Alvin's route. Just as the title suggests, he quite literally follows a straight story. No flashbacks, no context, nothing. Even during the production, the film was shot chronologically. And by the end, their reunion isn't corrupted by an unrealistic run into each other's arms. They say about 3 sentences before the camera tilts up into the night sky.
Did you ride that thing all the way out here to see me?
I did, Lyle.
The audience doesn't get to see this brotherhood, the driving force behind Alvin's determination, not because it wasn't crucial to know, but because hints of it was already scattered in the film. With each interaction, Alvin shares his warmth and, most importantly, his wisdom. We learn about these strangers' mistakes and, more frequently, familial issues. And we watch as Alvin offers guidance and perspectives that encourage them to forgive themselves or others. Though none of these conversations really ever touch on Alvin's relationship with Lyle, they imply that a force of distance and guilt is clearly behind Alvin's strength to keep going. We don't know much about Lyle, and though he's sort of our Emerald City, our wizard, our pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, the story is more about Alvin. Alvin in all his deep grief, shame, and more importantly, unconditional kindness. Though many interpret this film as a film about commitment, a belief in one's goals, the real message is how far can your regret and need for redemption take you in this life? A question not answered by Lyle's ability to forgive Alvin, but a question answered by Alvin's journey to get to Lyle and inevitably into himself. A question answered not by the last scene, but by every little subplot throughout the film. Sometimes you simply need to forgive yourself. And in Hitchcock's finest, Vertigo, we learn how a message can drive a story about answers better than the answers themselves. After being hired by an old friend who fears his wife is possessed, Scotty follows Madeline around as a deep infatuation develops. And after a series of twists, body doubles, deaths, and betrayal, Scotty winds up filled with paranoia, trauma, and is pushed to his limit. Though Hitchcock offers an explanation, an answer to all the plot twists that messes up with Scotty's life, the actual reveal isn't what concerns the audience. Many critics claim the film serves as a confession into Hitchcock's own treatment of his female cast, which can only lead me to assume the entire film is really about the male obsession with the female ideal, not much about who killed whom or who is who. Though these answers and twists definitely provide much appreciated context, what hooks the audience in mostly is Scotty's paranoia and obsession. This is the driving force of the film. Scotty's attempt to recreate Judy into Madeline's image is far more intriguing than any of the other reveals in the film, because it unlocks parts of the character that at that time, and even arguably now, are far more disturbing than the murders themselves. Similar to the many reactions of Severance Season 2 finale, The Graduate also ends in the same nonsensical, pointless way. We journey through Benjamin's life as he tries to grasp for his future while his present spirals around him. After successfully escaping a wedding with the love of his life, the two travel on a bus. In the most iconic ending of all time, they stare distantly off into space. Their expressions go from pure euphoria to just moments later, pure fear and confusion. A scene that perfectly encapsulates everything he has been feeling. Though the film is structured around the idea that he better figure out his life and make plans for the future, it stays more with who he is and how he navigates that pressure. But the film tricks us. We watch him impulsively break up a marriage, and at that point we think, yay, he's got a plan, he's got an answer for the future. But the shot doesn't cut to the credits. It lingers, it stays, making us realize this wasn't a resolution, a solution to anything. It simply was a choice that clearly had no plan behind it. The issue of his life from the very start of the film, the lack of a plan. Where are they gonna go now? What are they gonna do now? It's a choice disguised as a plan. No questions grilled onto him from the start of the film is really answered by the end of it. But maybe that's precisely the point. The film wasn't made for a resolution, for a happy ending. It was made to depict the confusion, the stress, and uncertainty of this moment in your life. It's a study into the people like him in the world, how they cope with this issue, and how, if you resonate with it, to remember that it's okay, everyone does. It's about how sometimes you might not have an answer, and the film portrays this by, well, not answering. Not answering what's gonna happen now for this couple, not answering what's gonna happen in his future, not answering anything because he too has no answers. Going back to our discussion of weapons, I mentioned this in a review I wrote for the film. The full review can be found in the link below. I think when it comes to a horror with a twist, it can most likely only work in two ways. It has to be a great twist with an even better revelation, or, for the cases where the twist is underdeveloped or underwhelming, the build-up to the reveal must be extremely suspenseful and thrilling. While I think Weapons fails to do either, Don't Look Now does an excellent job in doing the latter. Sure, there's a lot to be appreciated in the twist and foreshadowing, but overall, a dwarf being a murderer pretending to be a child is not all that mind-blowing to me. But what has me keeping the film at a high 9 out of 10 is its execution and build-up, two things that I think Weapons lack. We can obviously jump to the assumption that the answer doesn't matter because ultimately the film is one big commentary on grief and how it alters your rationality, making you jump straight into the first and third stages of grief, denial and bargaining. But I think a better way to use this film to exemplify that the journey is more important than the answer is in its suspenseful build-up. Sure, the themes and motifs will outweigh the very underwhelming plot twist, but the anxiety and obsession of the characters is what I think draws us to the film. From the wonderfully crafted scenes of running around Italy to the well-executed jump scares, the pure dread and fright instilled in the audience are more than enough. From the first scene alone, before anything actually happens, the palpable tension in the editing and sound was enough to spook me. I think even without a plot twist, if it were just a simple daughter haunting him around Venice film, it would just be as good. That's how you know the film didn't really need a plot twist or an answer to begin with. We fear the power of grief that skews the father's rationality and turns him into this obsessive, desperate person, seeing his dead daughter everywhere he goes. We fear the idea that the guilt consumes him so much that he'd rather choose this version of his daughter rather than accept her death. And this concept is scarier than any other answer the film can offer us. The journey often reveals more to us than the answers. In a way, sometimes the answer is just a MacGuffin, a plot point or a device to move the story along, not really the actual thing we want to obtain. Films like this offer a unique experience to the audience because they ask a question and promise to find an answer while playing all sorts of technical tricks to show you the answer was there all along. Whether that's in our protagonists or characters, or in the world they ventured through, or in the themes underneath both of those things. So the next time you watch a film that incites a question, start asking if the answer is really what matters to you, or is it the journey you're looking forward to?